So that's what we're talking about with community. And, of course, we're going to be talking about how we live with love and how Course in Miracles has touched us. And Matthew has joined with me every week that I've done this. But the new person today for us here is Peter, and he'll join in shortly. I met Peter because of a different meetup group, and it was a positive vibrations group, how to raise your positive vibrations. And it was an evening. It was a bonfire. There was probably, I'm going to say, about 60 people there, and never seen Peter before. And one of the people that he had talked to kind of mentioned that I was into Course in Miracles, and of course, that piqued his interest because, as I found out after we sat next to each other and had a little discussion, that he came across A Course in Miracles like 25 years ago. And although he hasn't religiously followed it for 25 years, he has been aware of it and has used it multiple times in his life. And I think he's come into a very good understanding and, brings a lot to our group. And I hope you're going to enjoy listening to him as well. And it was funny because our synchronistic moment between Peter and I was when I said, I listened to this great channel on YouTube about heaven letters. And he just smiled at me and pulled out his phone and, showed me his email. And he said, I get the heaven letters sent to my email box every single day. So I thought that was pretty cool because, that's just the way the world works, right? Everything is energy and we're all connected. And that's about the Holy Encounter. So now talking about the Holy Encounter, here's another kind of cool synchronistic thing. Matthew and I have known each other, I'm going to say maybe for about 3 months now. And when he found out that we were doing Community and the Holy Encounter for this episode, he said that he's written something about a year ago that would probably fit right in with this. So, Matthew, I can't wait to hear this.
All right. That's great. So, one of the best ways to commune with the Holy Spirit is to every morning to put him in charge of your day and to put him in charge of your thoughts. And what I got here, I constructed this, about a year ago, as you said. And it's kind of like a mission statement in a sense, but it's really just a declaration that kind of puts the Holy Spirit in charge. And, it doesn't have to be this long for anyone. It can just be simply like saying, Holy Spirit, you be in charge today. But for me, I've written out something here, and it's, it's not really, it's not in paragraph form per se, but, I'll just kind of read it as it is. And it'll really tie into what the Holy Encounter is about, what the Holy Instant is about, and also community. And because community is a form of communion, and I have a specific excerpt from the Course that kind of addresses what that is in here as well. So I'll just begin. Let us remember that our goal is God. God is our only goal, our only love. We have no aim but to remember him. Complete restoration of the sonship is the only goal of the miracle-minded. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all of the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. Our goal is removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. This is that statement's from the introduction of the Course, which is essentially the crux of the Course. And then it also leads into this statement that nothing real can be threatened and nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. And then when we remember what forgiveness is and what the Holy Encounter is, it's about extending love to others, leaving others with a feeling of expansion, expressing anything to another person that makes them feel beautiful. And that's a really plain English way of describing the Holy Encounter, and then lead into unity and communion and communication. And the Holy Spirit uses the body to communicate with others. The Holy Spirit sees the body only as a means of communication, and because communication is sharing, it becomes communion. And through forgiveness and kindness, we are expressing with infinite capacity to love ourselves and each of our sisters and brothers maximally. And that is the holy encounter. That is the holy instant. And my final sentence here reflects that the holy instant is the closest human experience to being one with God. And I'll just kind of summarize things with the holy instant and the holy encounter. That's essentially when we're inviting the Holy Spirit into our experience. So the holy instant is when you switch from the ego's thought system of separation over to the Holy Spirit's thought system of unity and peace. And the holy encounter is very similar in that when you're interacting with another person, or it could be a situation, is that you're inviting the Holy Spirit's interpretation into that encounter, and now you're seeing that person or circumstance with peace and love and kindness.
Matthew, I think it's Peter here. Hello, everybody. Matthew's drawn a wonderful point, a wonderful destination to arrive at. And it is a destination that I think on the deepest level all of us are seeking, and yet our biggest struggles, even though we seem to know how to get there, we have difficulty getting there. And as the Course in Miracles says, its aim is to remove the blockages to getting there. And before we can arrive at a destination, it's very, very important to practice as much as possible self-honesty, to see where we're at, and to have the willingness, the small willingness, to at least, without judgment, simply look at where we're at so that we have an accurate starting point. And for me, that probably more than anything else was an ability to say and to recognize how much fear I've had in my life. And to simply recognize that, you know what, all this fear that I've generated in different ways for different reasons is what's preventing me from being more gently guided in my life in the direction that I want to go. So, as I say, just to start with, what am I feeling most of the time, most of the day? What are my predominant feelings about myself and about my relationship with others? Because we are talking about community, and it's very, very helpful to simply look at our lives in connection with others. Do we have many people in our lives that we're connecting to, that we can speak honestly to, that we trust and that we're open to? And so I think the journey begins there.
You know, I'm just going to jump in here. The other thing I think is people that accept us, right? Because we have our thought systems, and, you know, this is why the community of finding other people who think similar or even not necessarily think exactly the same or agree all the time, because, you know, a friendly debate is always interesting and expands our awareness. But I really think it's important that when we have these a community where, you know, we can have our foundation, which for us is A Course in Miracles. So even if we venture off a little bit, we always get back to that. It's like my backbone. I think, you know, I'm pretty sure you guys feel that as well. And, yeah, so it's just important, because if you are living your life and you look at this Course in Miracles and there's not one person in your life that's going to understand it, or when you mention it, they're going to look at you like you have two heads, then it's really, really important. And I encourage you that you need to find people that you are able to talk to who get it, who get you, who understand it. Matthew, anything coming up for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, a couple of things, and it's always great to join with like-minded people in whatever endeavor one is pursuing. With the course, it's very unique because it is a self-study course. And so, it can be done by an individual joining with the Holy Spirit, and that is essentially the communion or the community that is formed in that person's mind. At the same time, we have a wonderful meetup group, and there are groups all over the world that join together and offer one another further understanding of the Course and elaborate on their own experience with the Course. And those can be greatly beneficial as well. I think it's always important, though, to bring everything back to forgiveness. So whatever topics are being discussed, in our group, like you said, maybe we get a way to discussing something else. Like, for example, here we had the Ottawa shooting. I believe it was this week, and that's something that can certainly be discussed as a community. It's just important to always bring something like that back to forgiveness and realize and to understand what is it really for? What is its purpose? And its purpose is to join in communion with the Holy Spirit. And when you can bring that understanding to a group, that's when the spiritual progress really begins to accelerate, because now there's a unified understanding of the actual function and purpose of everything in the world.
Yeah, and that's such a touchy subject, too.
Yeah.
I don't even like to go with that, but Peter, if you have any thoughts, I would love to hear it.
Well, it seems to me that really whenever something especially that's emotionally charged happens in the world, that there is oftentimes the tendency to view it through a certain lens or a certain perspective, and there's oftentimes the tendency to have an emotional reaction to those charged incidences. And of course, with something like the shooting and whatnot going on, the immediate response for a lot of people brings up feelings of both, combined anger and outrage, and sometimes maybe disbelief. And when something that catastrophic or that violent happens, it's helpful if we can at least look at our own reactions, because they're an indication to how we're seeing something. And if we're seeing something that causes us to contract, to close up in fear, and to have a sense of outrage and wanting to get back and wanting to get even, that is definitely one perspective. And unless we can begin to consider or imagine that the perspective from the Holy Spirit is one which moves us in the exact opposite direction, which is of openness and of adding to the situation the exact opposite, that normally our reactions would tend us to pull us into, because whenever we come from fear or whenever our fear is magnified, we actually put out a different type of message or signal to the universe as to what life is like. And if our message to the universe and our reaction is that life is dangerous, people have to be punished, we have to be more on guard, and we have to protect ourselves more, then that message kind of gets added to the consciousness of everyone. And if we can see that by adding that kind of message to it, and if we can be sensitive enough to realize that adding that kind of a voice is not helpful, then at least there will be a certain willingness to surrender our current state of being and seeing and feeling, and with as much gentleness and surrender as possible, to perhaps see it differently, to perhaps see that these events, in fact, are highlights in our life, where, because we're shocked enough into really becoming aware of our feelings, to really suddenly stop and consider, is this how I want to feel? Is this how I want to think? Does this add to healing in the world? A lot of times, if incidences aren't as as dramatic, we'll have a reaction to it, and oftentimes we won't even be conscious that our reaction is negative, that we're judgmental, that we close off to some small degree. But when something as big as this happens, it's very, very hard not to know exactly where we're coming from and how we're feeling. So in one way, everything can be used to bring us closer to the Holy Spirit. And the bigger the tragedy, some ways, the easier it is to make a decision for either love or fear.
That's really interesting as well, because even on a smaller scale in our own personal lives, we can have things that feel catastrophic to us on a personal level, and those moments too are also moments that quite easily show us where we don't want to be and get us closer to the Holy Spirit. And Matthew, what did that thought inspiring you?
Well, I mean, it's for me, and as you study the Course more and more, in fact, I think it's one of the might even be the first miracle principle, that there is no order of difficulty in miracles. Mm-hmm. And then later in chapter 23, it's discussing the laws of chaos, and it suggests, or it teaches us, that there is no hierarchy of illusions. So what that means is that, a mild upset is the equivalent to outright rage and, anger. Of course, what happens in the world is symbolically played out in a different form. Like the shooting is obviously a very extreme example of that. But at the level of the mind, there's no difference between someone getting a little bit upset or someone, having these murderous thoughts. And so it's just really important for me to recognize that there's no difference. And I can choose love or fear. I can choose peace or chaos with anything that I'm looking at in the world. And depending on which teacher I choose to, whoever interpretation I choose, whether it's the Holy Spirit or the ego, that will determine my state of being. Just as Peter's describing how, to every seeming instant on the planet, you can choose one or the other. And when we choose peace, that's what we demonstrate and express to the world.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting how you just said that, because when I think about, there are no order of difficulty in miracles, I didn't say that right, I'm sure it's quoted a little bit better than I just said it, but what it also makes me think, and I hadn't thought of that before, so I thank you for giving me a new thought, which is even in those moments of, chaos, there's no, although on the surface, in the illusion, it looks as though this is huge and this is little, but really, if it's causing the same reactions within my body, then it's probably really, really important for me to forgive, even the most minute things, right? Peter, how do you feel about that?
I think it's helpful to start sort of with a theory. In my own life, I found that while a theory is good, there is some practice that is part of this learning, and part of that practice is when we see these extreme reactions. Those extreme reactions come from some very deep-seated beliefs and emotions. And simply to say, I choose peace, might almost be a bit flippant in most people's reality, because you can say choose peace, but is it really that, at the beginning at least, that possible to switch over that quickly into suddenly being at peace and loving exactly what's going on? For myself, I practice spending more time releasing whatever feelings I have, releasing whatever thoughts I have about that, in the sense of simply recognizing that, those thoughts have got to be there, and I certainly know that the feelings are there. Can I now, as a practice, simply let go of that as much as possible by focusing on what would I like to experience at some point. I mean, I'm not feeling peace at the beginning, but if I can take enough time to rest in my tension and in my anger and in my resistance and even in my fear, because fear's message is to stay fearful and to stay defensive. And so to practice not listening to that message and to practice relaxing when fear is screaming at us, get even and protect yourself, we're moving in a direction in which there's going to be resistance. And we participate in melting that resistance by practicing simply, at least at the beginning, being with it, not to try and change it to anything else right now. To have the intention of feeling at peace and at love is, in a sense, our anchor. But then it's a matter of letting go as much as possible of those feelings, letting go of that tension in the body, of that conviction that there's something wrong here. And in the practice of surrendering that, because what we really do seek is a feeling of deeper peace. In the surrender of that, something new begins to emerge in our understanding and in our body and in our mind, whereby through surrender things quiet down. A pervading sense that the answer to this is for our judgments to subside, is for our own fears to subside. And so the practice of it for me is what's as important as knowing what the goal is. The goal is peace, the goal is love. But I do trust, for myself at least, it's a journey of being comfortable with where I'm at the beginning. Because if I'm trying to change my feeling, thinking that I'm the one that needs to change this feeling, because we're so inclined that we've got to do something about our feelings, and we've got to do something about our thoughts. And yet what the Course in Miracles says to me as much as anything else is, it's not our doing that will get us to where we want to arrive. It's our surrendering what we've already done always and letting go of that and simply letting go of it and observing it. That where in our salvation lies. We're so incredibly conditioned to always try and be in control and do something about the situation. And the fact of the matter is, we need do nothing. And the more we realize that it's only our surrender and our willingness to be healed or to see differently that's required of us. Any more than that, and we're actually interfering with the process.
I think that's a really great point you brought across, and I'm watching the time, so we have about 6 minutes left. And it's interesting because one day in my life, I don't know, I'm going to say probably about 9 years ago, I woke up one morning and I thought, I want to see peace. So I decided in that moment that, when I went outside, I was going to see peace, and I started to see it. But it did take a lot of practice, and, I still have moments 9 years later where, I don't see peace sometimes, but I do see it a heck of a lot more as when I started to make that conscious effort to see it. And Matthew, did you want to expand upon that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, when the Course in Miracles talks about seeing, peace and the idea, there's two important workbook lessons. I'm never upset for the reason I think, and I can choose peace instead of this. And what it means when I'm choosing peace instead of this is exactly as Peter's describing, right, is that you're releasing it to the Holy Spirit. And that's a process, right? It doesn't happen in a minute, in a linear time scale, right? The holy instant is happening outside of time. So that's why with an instant you can choose the Holy Spirit's thought system. But that may take, several minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, or years in the process that it unfolds in the world. And so everyone should be, not judging ourselves, being kind to ourselves in however long it takes for us to release whatever it is that we're going through in our life. And that's really the fundamental process, is not to judge our judgments, not to judge our reactions, and just to recognize them and release them one crumb at a time. And that's what forgiveness is.
For myself,
Peter, do you want to put in a couple of minutes there?
I think it's a process of life where we begin to get to know what we really value and what really works. As long as our goals and our top priorities and values are outside of us, whether it's to make more money, have a different partner, fix our bodies or whatever, as long as those are still consciously what we're after, then peace is truly not what we'll experience. And until we get to recognize that it's the clear choice that above all else, I want to experience love, I want to experience a sense of safety, and that anything other than that simply takes me away from the goal. And to know that that's the fact rather than a theory, to know that unless I choose peace, if I'm spending most of my day worrying about what I want to fix in my life, then we're not choosing peace. We may say that my relationship is important, but if you're trying to fix it, if you're trying to fix the other person, you're not choosing peace because you're problem-oriented. Choosing peace is letting go of the problem so that the answer will surface, but we have to recognize that the answer is already there and it's not arrived at after the fact, after we fix the problem. We need to let go of the problem first to get a sense of the answer, and to know that that's the case, I think, is helpful.
Yeah, that's great. And Matthew, do you have a final thing, or?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, that's it. Just be kind to yourself and let the process unfold.
Yeah, I think that's really wonderful. And, I guess I'm going to have to say this because I've had to do this, is sometimes certain jobs and certain people in your life, if they're no longer harmonious and it's just, causing you not to have peace, then it's okay to let those things go, because ultimately, if you have to do what's going to make you happy in the long run. And it's not a good thing to, stay in a toxic situation. I think we have about a minute left here. So, 60 seconds. Okay, so I encourage you, thank you everyone for listening, and I encourage you to, if you would like to connect with us, you can find us on Facebook in the search bar there. Just type in Living with Love and you will find us. We'd love to connect with readers. I'm sure you can leave a comment here somehow, and we can connect with you there too. And also, don't forget, go to meetup.com and look for a Course in Miracles group in a neighborhood near you. It could be one of the best things you do to connect with people that are going to be on a similar journey to yours. So I'm going to say goodbye for now. Once again, it's Sarah, Matthew, and Peter, and we're part of Living with Love, a Course in Miracles discussion group in Durham region. So thanks for listening. Bye for now.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.
So are